Hi everyone, welcome back to Cottoverdi. My name's Annette, and today, despite the drizzly grey weather, it's quite an exciting day because I am planting up some containers with dahlias, and these are the shorter variety of dahlias that I think are perfect to have in containers on the corners of these steps here throughout the summer, and I think they're going to add a really big splash of colour. And last week I planted up some other containers with annuals and perennials and things like that. If you didn't catch that video, I'll link it in the description below, but those plants or those containers are going to be intermingled with the dahlia containers, so we're going to have like a really gorgeous display here that will suit the borders on either side of me, so I'm very excited. Anyway, I thought I'd bring you along today as I plant up these containers and tell you about the dahlias that I've chosen to put in here and show you the combination of colours that I'm going for. So along with planting up these containers with dahlias, I'm also going to be taking the tulips out, and I'm going to show you what I do with those tulips once they've gone over and how I store them until the autumn when I'll plant them out in the borders. It's really starting to rain, so I'm going to pop inside for a minute until it stops, and then we'll come back out again. You can see Richard in the background. Anyway, we'll catch up in a second. Stay with me. So behind me here we have all the pots that had the tulips in them, and you can see that I've left them to die back completely. And this is something that I do so that all the nutrition is absorbed into the bulb, so that we've got a better chance of them creating beautiful flowers for us next year. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take all of these out and put them into net bags. I'm going to keep them in storage in crates in the garage where they're not going to get too hot in the summer. If we leave them in the shed, they run the risk of getting too hot and just baking, because sheds can get very warm. So we're going to keep them stored in the garage where it's much cooler, and then in the autumn I'm going to plant them out into our borders. Now I have got labels in each of these pots, so I will know what the varieties are and what colours they are, but if you missed my tulip display, then you can catch that on a video on my channel to see what colours I had. What I'll show you is what I did earlier on, so hang on a second. So what I have done on all of these tulip pots is as soon as we brought the pots off the patio, because the tulips had gone over, I deadheaded them. Now you can see that I did that to all of them except these ones here. So I haven't deadheaded those. So when you're deadheading a tulip, literally we're just snapping off the ends. Let me show you. So we take off this bulbous bit here, and the reason that I should have done that to these, and I did it to all the rest, is that this bit is where the seeds are formed. And if we let the bulb or plant form seeds and put all its energy into forming these seeds so that it can propagate itself, then it's not putting all its energy into the bulb, and then we won't have as good a flower display next year. So it's better to deadhead everything. These ones were the last ones to go over. That's why they just haven't been deadheaded yet. And in fact, they're still a bit green, but I am going to pull them up today. As far as I'm concerned, it's the end of tulip season. So with the tulip bulbs, I'm going to cut off all the dead foliage and just save the bulb itself, and then all the bulbs will go into a net bag like this. So I just use these net bags. I'll put a link in the description below if you're interested in what I store them in, but they're plastic bags, and I just reuse them every year. And in fact, they've been through the wash, so you can wash these if you want to. If they get mucky, perhaps your bulbs go mouldy, but these are the same bags in fact that I use to store my dahlias, so I just use them for tulips and dahlias, but that's what I use to keep each variety separate. You don't have to do this. If you want to mix up your varieties, then you definitely don't need to put them in a bag. Just store them in a crate or a cardboard box or something with a bit of ventilation. We use crates that have got holes in. It's the same crates that we use to store our dahlias, but I don't have that many bulbs here. I'll probably just need one crate, and then I'm just going to put each variety in. So let's get on with digging up some tulips. So all I'm going to do is literally just chop off all this dead foliage. And then this goes on the compost. I've decided that rather than trying to dig the bulbs out, it's going to be easier if we just lift, because I've got Richard's help, I'm just going to lift the entire pot into a wheelbarrow and tip it out that way and just take the bulbs out. I I think that's going to be the easiest way to get them out. You could just try and yank them out using the stems without cutting the stems off first, but actually I've found in the past that that doesn't work either because they're quite well rooted in. The roots go down to the bottom of the pots, so it's actually quite hard to get them out. So we don't actually want any of the stem bits because those will just rot. So I'm just kind of yanking off any of the roots, and I'm not keeping any of the little baby bulbs. They take, you know, maybe 5 years to grow into a tulip, and it's just not worth keeping any of the little ones that grow alongside it. So these little ones, I just compost those, don't bother keeping them. So these bulbs are, because they've just come out of the compost, they're a little bit damp, I'd say. And I do want them to dry off a bit before we put them into storage. So I'm just going to lay the bags flat on the garden table. Hopefully it's not going to rain, and they can dry off for a day before we put them into storage. So that's all I do. I just don't want to put them when they're quite so wet, piled up in crates into storage. So that is basically what we're going to do with all of these tulip pots. We're going to empty all of them in exactly the same way, just by sorting through and collecting up the bulbs and putting them into the bags. Once we've done that, I'm going to show you which dahlias I've chosen and how I pot them up into these pots, and then hopefully I'll be able to show you the display once it's all on the patio, along with all the other pots that I potted up the other day. That's if the rain holds off, otherwise I'll show you that tomorrow. Now that all the pots are emptied, Richard and I are going to do some speed planting. So I have got loads of dahlias here next to me, and what we're going to do is Richard is going to lift the pots up because my back's killing me. I'm going to lift the pots up onto the table, and we're going to fill them with compost and some slow release fertiliser, because I find that that really helps to give them some food as well as the fresh compost. So after some discussion, we've decided what we're going to do is, because we want to do speed planting, I'm going to tell you about which dahlias I've chosen for the patio containers, and Richard is going to help me by filling the pots with compost, and then we're going to mix in some slow release fertiliser, and then I'm going to plant the dahlias, and then we'll show you how everything looks afterwards. So the first dahlias I'm planting, and I'm planting 2 of each, so that we've got 1 on each side of the steps. The first one I'm planting is a gorgeous dahlia called Purple Flame. It grows to 70 centimetres. So the thing about all the dahlias that I've chosen for these containers is that they are all between 50 and 80 centimetres tall. So none of them are taller than 80 centimetres. So that's between 1.5 and 2.5 feet. And those are the dahlias that I've chosen for these containers. So I'm just going to plant these now. So I'm trying to make sure the level doesn't come up too high. I want to make sure there's enough room for us to be able to water these nicely, because the dahlias, whilst they don't like sitting in water, they do need water. I'm not adding any extra grit or anything to these containers because the dahlias don't need it. Just going to make sure they've got lots of nice nutrition. So as with all my other containers, I am going to add grit to the top of this compost, and I'm really doing this as a weed suppression method, but also because it's going to make sure that the compost doesn't dry out too fast. What I am going to do, and this is not completely necessary, I could just let them bloom, is I am just going to snip a couple of these just to make the plant bushier. I've got 3 good stems here, but I want a nice bushy plant, so I'm just taking out the little growing tip here, and that will encourage all the side shoots. I'm literally just counting sets of leaves, so I'm counting 1 set of leaves, 2 sets of leaves, this is the 3rd set, and then I'm taking out the growing tip here. So you'll see that some of the leaves are yellowing at the bottom. It's just a little bit hungry because it's been sitting in this pot here for at least a month. It's desperate to get into a better environment with more nutrition, and this will recover. This plant's perfectly healthy. I'm not worried about it. The next dahlia I'm planting is Palmares, and you can see that it's budding already. So because I haven't, I don't know, I think actually I'm going to snip that off. So even though I'm about to have some flowers, I'm going to snip them off so that I can have a bushier plant, because I really do want a bushier plant. So I had Palmares last year, but it didn't do particularly well because I think it got swamped in my flower beds, and so I think it's going to be so much happier in the pots. The next one I'm planting today is Wizard of Oz, which is one of my all-time favourites. It grows to about 70 centimetres tall, and it is just the most perfect pale pink colour with touches of cream. It's absolutely gorgeous. I'll put a picture up on the screen. This next one I'm planting is Creme de Cassis, which is absolutely stunning. It's just the perfect blackcurrant colour, and it's got beautiful edges to it, and it just is a really standout dahlia, but it is quite short. This next one I'm planting is Offshore Dream. Again, it's another lovely pale pink variety. This little one here will grow. This one's called Pink Runner. It's a lovely deep pink colour. This little one here is called Kelsey Annie Joy, and it's only got 1 stem. You can see that I've snipped out the top already. Kelsey Annie Joy is a gorgeous little dahlia. It's a collarette that is kind of apricot-y, deep apricot, I would say. This one is kind of hungry. You can see on the leaves that it really needs to get out of this pot. This one's called Heart and Ours. Gosh, it's so windy today, but it is gorgeous weather. Having rained this morning, it's now glorious after lunch. So I have potted up all of the dahlias. So I've got 14 pots of dahlias, along with all the containers I planted the other day in a previous video. And then I've got a few more containers that I didn't manage to get done, so I'm going to do those as well. And then we're going to place them on the patio. Now, we've decided that we want to jet wash the patio before we place the containers. So I can only show you them here, having been watered in, but if you want to see what they look like on the patio, then do subscribe to my channel and I'll be able to show you the progress as they flower and bloom through the summer and how everything looks. I really hope you've enjoyed watching this video today as Richard and I did this little project. Anyway, thank you so much for watching and I'll see you all next time.